Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. My name is Christina. This is a message for Twin Flame Union. I'm reading the energy of the connection, so it is meant for both twins. The main focus of the reading today are 3 questions. What's your current energy and where is that momentum carrying you? What is something good that you can focus on? And finally, where is an area of growth? So I've pulled your cards already, and we're starting with the bottom of the deck energy, where you have the hummingbird and the unicorn. So I feel like whenever I see the unicorn, I feel this as being sort of like third eye vision, and sort of receiving signs and synchronicities about something that is about to arrive. And you also have here the connection card, which is talking about that like sort of quantum pulling, that when you are connected to something significant to your soul, there is sort of the reaching through dimensions that can happen, and you can sort of feel the effects of that in your physical body. And I feel like that's what this reading is about. If you haven't watched the last Twin Flame Union reading called Energy Transference, I'm going to link it above so you can take a look at that one, because I feel like it's wanting to expand a little bit on that idea. So I will bring in some of the messages from that video into this one. And then you have here the Transcendence card, which is really incredible because I want to link it with this unicorn, right? It's sort of having like this ethereal quality to it, because I feel now it's bringing in like echoes, right? There's sort of like echoes happening in sort of like your physical environment, perhaps sensing echoes or sensations or something like that coming from the higher dimensions, right? And so it's kind of like a bleed through is kind of what this is feeling like. And with the hummingbird, because this talks about like very fast beating energy, right? Like very high vibrational energy, that because it's so high vibrational, it's sort of like being like leaked, or that's not the right word. It's being sort of transferred through the connection, basically. And with this Transcendence card, it came out in the Aries reading. So if the masculine or energy in this dynamic has Aries in their chart, I would check out that reading, because this one talked about how you're not going to recognize yourself at the end of whatever this dynamic is, whatever's happening there. And then you have the Chariot, the 2 voices, and the Knight of Voices. So again, I feel like whoever's watching this video, I feel like you're in this Chariot energy, which I always talk about as being like having a very strong position. And there is movement forward. With this 2 of Voices, though, I feel like that's what's wanting to be cleared a little bit, which is talking about like the doubt and the confusion, and almost feeling like you're being pulled in 2 different directions, especially with this connection card, because it's like you're receiving information or energy transference from the other side of the connection that is pulling on you in a way that can be experienced as like anxiety or worry or fear or doubt, or all of those sort of like uncertainty kind of energies. But what's coming in reality is this sort of like Knight of Voices. But because it's such a big arrival of something, the energy of it, like the echoes of it, the waves, the vibrate, like imagine if you just threw a big sort of rock into a pond. That energy vibration is being carried out to you, and you're almost feeling like the echoes of it is kind of what it's feeling like. Okay, so starting with the current energy and where that momentum is carrying you. So you actually started off with the Panther, which is so interesting, because this is typically like a fear response, right? And so it's kind of like your first instinct. And sometimes that could be your first instinct, first instinct in response to something that is fearful, or like a fear trigger or something like that. Like if you encounter something new, what is your first instinct? And I feel like that's what's wanting to be shifted a little bit, is trying to shift your instinctual response to something that's new or that's arriving, or that something that is just like something that you're not comfortable with, right? That kind of energy, because you have here the rabbit and the sea serpent. So the rabbit talks about having worries, right? It's like if you anticipate something negative coming, then you're more sort of primed to have a negative experience just because you're alert, right? It's like you're alert. There's perhaps anxiety or adrenaline or something like that can cause you to have more of a negative experience, is basically how this is coming through, which is interesting because it's coming out with the sea serpent, which talks about the sacral chakra. So there is work that you could perhaps do on sort of like calming the anxiety, because I feel like to some extent you can feel something has shifted or is coming closer to you, but it's causing anxiety because I feel like you don't know what that is yet. It's just like you can feel the waves or the echoes of whatever this thing is, but you don't know what caused it. Is kind of the rock being dropped into the pool, right? It's like you can feel the echoes or the waves of what that thing is, but the cause of that shift is not evident to you. So you're only feeling sort of the effects of it, which is perhaps causing confusion and doubt, right? Like it may be pulling you into your instinctual sort of response, especially with the twin flame, because there's so much like triggering that happens that you may be sort of pulled into a past kind of trigger or response in terms of something that feels similar. But I want to say for you is that like it feels like you're actively kind of restructuring your instinctual response, if that makes sense. That's kind of how it feels like, because you have here the peacock and the vulture. I love this vulture so much because it talks about clearing toxins from your environment. And I want to say that it has to do with that instinctual response, right? Because this peacock I see is sort of like having your attention tuned to something. But it's always sort of on like a high alert, right? It's like you can feel sort of the echoes of something that has shifted or changed or has been introduced into the environment. Perhaps you're not sure of what that is. And so it's like kind of like actively having to calm or clear out any of those, like that panther energy, which is just like an instinctual response to fear, is how I'm reading this. But what you have here is such an incredible combination of cards. The Kintsugi, which I love, Know Thyself, and the Prism. All of these cards are mastery cards to me. Like, the Kintsugi talks about having healed all of the things that you need to heal, and because of that, you're whole and complete. The Know Yourself is like bringing together the self-concept that you have of yourself and how others perceive you, and making that into a harmonious kind of expression, which talks about authenticity. And then the Prism is using your unique filter of experiences to I don't know, it's coming through as relay a message, or just like having your unique experiences dictate what your physical experience is kind of how. So it's like the Know Yourself, but actually putting it into action, that kind of energy. And so all of these cards are mastery cards to me, which is telling me that if you're watching this, it's like you are completely aware that of who you are and how you naturally sort of react, perhaps, like your behavioral patterns and all of that, and then actively working towards shifting the ones that are not working for you, that are holding you back, right? Like rewriting the instincts that are keeping you from your expansion is basically how I'm seeing this, which is absolutely incredible. Because you have here for the tarot the 8 of materials, the 5 of voices, and then the Ace of voices. So how I'm seeing this is like 8 of materials I see is like doing the work, right? Having a lot of sort of tasks or projects that you're working towards and doing successfully. It doesn't have to be just work related, like the typical kind of like 9-to-5 work job. It's like talking about like having a balance in your work life, your home life, your love life, all of that sort of balanced and working, and you're doing a great job. What's coming out with this, the Five of Voices, I see this as being sort of like distractions, right? And so it's coming through with this peacock energy today as well. It's like there's something that's pulling your attention perhaps, and I feel like it's this, because it's always like turning away from the distractions of like, and it could be your own sort of mental state, especially when I talk about like sort of thinking patterns. It's so easy to sort of fall into those old patterns that no longer serve us just because it's what we're used to, right? So I feel like this energy is shifting, especially with the Ace of Voices too, because I feel like those things are always going to be there, right? There's always going to be distractions. There's always going to be things that we're needing to reframe or reshift our thinking about. But the Ace of Voices, it's like you're ready to move forward. It's just kind of like the looking back at the energies that we are leaving behind. But that's absolutely necessary, especially with the Vulture, is to, like, when you're trying to clear out or shift or change any sort of like toxicity, you actually have to experience it, right? You have to actually experience it, recognize that that's not a behavior or something or a thought pattern or something that's beneficial to you, and then just release it and let it go. That's what this Vulture is. So there is kind of like discomfort in that, of like actually having to feel the energy, like having to ingest, in quotations, the toxicity in order to sort of clear it from your system, is kind of how that's coming through. But the cards that you have next, which are absolutely incredible, is the Seven of Materials, which talks about putting your head down and doing the work, right? Like focusing on the steps that you need to take towards whatever it is that you're working towards, right? It's like putting your head down and focusing on you and the things that you are doing, instead of being sort of drawn into the distractions, the things that perhaps a past version of you would have said yes to or focused on or put your attention on. But it's like you are actively working towards something that is more beneficial to your expansion. It's kind of how it's coming through. And then you have here the Knight of Inspiration, which just talks about fast movement forward, inspiration, but also like joy and happiness, right? Like all of this sort of celebration energy. And then you have the Star and the 10 of Emotions. So it's like creating your emotional fulfillment. And with the Star, it talks about healing as well, because of this Kintsugi card, this card always implies healing, right? Becoming whole after having done your healing. And so there's a lot of this sort of like, it feels more like a rebirth. It's not necessarily a restarting with the Star card. It's not a Fool energy. It's more so like a rebirth of like cleansing anything that is needing to be left behind, and then having sort of this new rejuvenated energy to continue on the journey towards creating emotional fulfillment, which is absolutely gorgeous for current energy. Okay, next question is, what's something good that you can focus on? And so this is where the sort of energy transference reading comes in today. You have here the bat, the shark, and the whale, which is so incredible, because I feel like this is what is wanting to sort of shift a little bit. If you didn't watch the energy transference message, or you just don't remember, it's talking about how like when you are connected, like in the twin flame connection, you and your twin can share or transfer energies through the connection, like from a distance, right? So you can feel what your twin is going through and vice versa. And so that's what this bat is talking about, is like receiving information through your non-physical senses. And it talks about like from a distance, but also emphasizing that there is change and movement coming. And so I feel like you, if you're watching this, have felt some sort of shift, right? It's like you've heard the echoes. It's not something that you can see clearly what caused that, right? It's like the sonar. It's like the waves, the energy, the echoes are coming back to you to tell you that something has shifted, or there's something in the horizon, something in the landscape that you're approaching, but it's not clear what that thing is. And I feel like that's what this reading is wanting you to focus on, because it's supposed to be what's something good that you can focus on. With the shark here, I always see this as being like something that's misunderstood. Absolutely. There's something misunderstood in terms of like, you can't see what it is that caused that echo yet. But because it's coming out with the whale, because I love this whale card as something being like a whale is about to jump up in front of your ship to like surprise you, that kind of energy. But it's entirely welcome, right? It's like if you go whale watching, you want to see a whale. Not a shark. And it's reassuring you that you are going to have this sort of like very sort of peak experience kind of energy. Like you will see the thing that has caused the echoes. And just a reminder that it is sort of misunderstood at this point, because it's like perhaps with this fear energy is that you perhaps may be anticipating the worst, or anticipating something that's like not true, in that it was something that you may have like, it's just an anxiety response, right? It's like anticipating the worst, or anticipating something that is worse than it actually is, right? With the shark. So I feel like that's what's wanting to shift here, especially because you have this 3 of Emotions card, which I talk about as being like the 3 fates, where it's like they give you an out of context snapshot, or just like riddles for you to solve, and saying up ahead there are you're gonna encounter these 3 things, but it's only like a snippet, like a 1-line sentence, that if you take that sentence out of context, it can be read as being kind of negative, right? So it's like they tell you, like an example of this would be in this book series that I was reading. It's like the main character was told as a child. My dog starts barking in the background. She was told as a child that you will bring death and destruction upon the whole community, right? That's a 1-sentence sort of snapshot kind of thing. But of course, the way that the story plays out, it's not all of that sort of death, gloom energy. Like to a certain point, that energy was true, but absolutely not in the way that it was foretold, is how I'm going to put it. It was much more sort of like emotionally fulfilling in the way that foretelling, or that out of context sort of snapshot was played out, basically. And so it's like what you may be feeling right now is this sort of energy, the Muse of Inspiration, which is all this sort of like fiery kind of like trial by fire energy, where you are moving towards something. Absolutely. There is something ahead for you and for the connection, a shift in the connection perhaps. But because you're only getting sort of the ripples, you're not seeing what the main like cause of the ripples are. It's perhaps putting you in this state of like anxiety, or thinking that the worst is happening, or that kind of thing. And so with the Discernment and the Involution card, this Involution card I always see as like calming the monkey mind, right? Like quieting that part of the mind that wants to sort of overthink, to try and put a story onto what it is that you're feeling. Sometimes it's like you can't even anticipate what that thing is yet. And with the Discernment, right, there's something that's not quite in view yet, and what it is that you are seeing or experiencing may be sort of like an upheaval kind of energy. With the Vulture, it might feel like upheaval, or a lot of change, or something toxic. I don't want to use the word toxic. That word has so much like loaded meaning in it that I want to stay away from that. It's kind of more like something that is not what you wanted to manifest or expected to manifest is sort of being cleared out, and you sort of have to experience that and then work through it and let it go, is basically what this is talking about. And that's absolutely going to take strength as well. But that's what this is. It's quieting that sort of instinctual fear response, basically. Okay. But what's up ahead? It's like what you have, I feel like this period right now, because you have here the Tower, the Eight of Voices, and the Six of Emotions, which is talking, like the Tower, this one I feel, I see as being sort of like a breakthrough moment, but again, it can be sort of jarring and like a lot of energy, right? There's a lot of sort of energy that's being shifted and broken through. Breaking through some sort of boundary or barrier can be part of it as well, especially with the Eight of Voices. But that's so more so talking about like the fact that there is something misunderstood about this situation. And with the Six of Emotions, which is interesting, because you also had this Emotions card to come out, which I generally love this card with the jellyfish. It talks about like being drawn into a display, a light display. So most of jellyfish are very sort of transparent. Like they're not substantial. There's something there, but if you add sort of like lights and a clear background and sort of like make it vibrant, it seems much more solid than it is. So I feel like there's a message here about like what it is you're experiencing perhaps has this element of like making it a bigger deal than it is kind of how it's coming through. But as soon as you sort of pass through that energy, because you do need to pass through it. You need to experience this in order to let it go. You have this beautiful Ace of Materials, which talks about a fresh new start, right? This is the thing that caused the ripples. And it's like, as the ripples sort of get to you, it's that whole broken telephone message where it's like, this is the thing that caused the source of the message. As it sort of passes through all these like boundaries to get to you, the true message sort of gets lost in translation, basically. And so it's like, after you sort of get, like, as you draw closer to whatever this message or the source of the disturbance is kind of how it's coming through, the source of the disturbance, as you get closer to it, the picture will become clear and this new start will emerge, is kind of how it's feeling. Okay. I'm going to end it there for the message. Hopefully that was helpful. I do have other videos if you want to check those out. I am going to move to the extended. The link for that is in the description box below. Thank you so much for sharing your energy with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.